That was all that was required to be revised for homeostasis. Now we are going to start revising cell structure and functions. In physiology, you are going to find out it is very important to know the structural anatomy or functional anatomy of anything. It means that you should know how structure of something is related to its functioning. So for the cell, we are going to look at its various components, their structure, how their structure is adapted to their functioning, and what their functions actually are. We are going to start with the plasma membrane. We are going to see its structure, constituents, and its functions. In this diagram, you can see the basic scheme of plasma membrane. Plasma membrane is an entity which covers the cell. It is a membrane that covers the cell. It is composed of a lipid bilayer. You can see the two layers right here, lipid bilayer, and in this lipid bilayer are embedded various proteins. This entire model of lipid bilayer with embedded proteins is known as a fluid mosaic model. Fluid means that the very nature of plasma membrane is fluidy. And what does the word mosaic means? It means that the pattern resembles that of a mosaic. The lipids and the proteins, they give an appearance of embedded stones or anything which resembles a mosaic pattern. So this is the fluid mosaic model, which is composed of lipid bilayer and the embedded proteins. You should always try to explain the functions of plasma membrane in terms of its constituents. How you can do that? This table right here is going to help you. The constituents of plasma membrane are mainly lipids and proteins, and to some extent carbohydrates. We are going to look at each constituent one by one, describe their types and their functions. Let's start off with the lipids. Phospholipids are the major types of lipids present in the plasma membrane along with cholesterol. Types of phospholipids which are present, they include phosphatidylcholine, phosphatidylserine, and phosphatidylethanolamine. Functions. Phospholipids have two ends. One of those ends, which is the head, is hydrophilic, that is, it is exposed to the watery environment outside. The other end is the water hating hydrophobic end, which is present inside, or that is, in the lipid bilayer, the hydrophobic ends are sandwiched between the hydrophilic ends. What are the functions of lipids? They impart fluidity to the plasma membrane and they form the permeability barrier. How permeability barrier is formed? Only lipid soluble substances can pass through this lipid bilayer. Proteins. Types of proteins and some properties are listed here. Proteins make up 50% of the cell membrane. They exist as these types. They can exist as channel, receptor, anchor, carrier, cell recognition proteins, and also as enzymes. They can be integral proteins or they can be peripheral proteins. Integral proteins are those which span at least one leaflet of the lipid bilayer. And peripheral proteins, they are not exactly embedded in the lipid bilayer, but they are attached to it through these lipidated or glycosylated ends. What are the functions of these proteins? These proteins, for example, channels and carriers, they transport substances into the cell. Enzymes are responsible for catalyzing reactions. They can mediate an intracellular response to extracellular ligands, example, hormones. Cell stabilization required for facilitated transport, and they can act as self or foreign identifier on the cells. Carbohydrates. What are the types of carbohydrates? Carbohydrates are usually associated with proteins, and to some extent lipids as well, and they also form the glycocalyx. Because carbohydrates are present in the periphery of the plasma membrane, together they can form a structure which is known as glycocalyx. What does this glycocalyx do? It imparts a negatively charged surface to the cell, and it can help in the cell to cell adhesion, cell recognition, and certain immune reactions. Let's revisit important points from the physiology of cytoplasm. You are going to encounter two terms, cytosol and cytoplasm. These two terms are different and you should know about these. Cytoplasm refers to the interior of the cell, which contains organelles and the cytosol itself. What exactly is cytosol then? Cytosol is basically the intracellular fluid matrix. It contains many soluble proteins, ions, metabolites, and cytoskeletal elements. Along with the non-membranous organelles, and the membranous organelles are not found within the cytosol because they are separated from the cytosolic compartment by their membranes. So it is the cytoplasm that contains the membranous organelles, whereas the cytosol, it is the fluid component of the cytoplasm. Now that we are discussing the components of cytoplasm, let's just look at the cytoskeleton first. The components of the cytoskeleton that you should know about are the microfilaments, intermediate filaments, and microtubules. All of these components have this one thing in common, that they are protein in nature. We are going to look at these components one by one. Let's start off with microfilaments. Microfilaments are composed of actin protein, which exists in two forms, globular actin or filamentous actin. G for globular, F for filamentous actin. Whenever the microfilaments are unpolymerized, they are present, their monomers, they form globular actin. Whenever it is polymerized, their monomers are known as filamentous actin. Their size is small and their properties are, they are thin and flexible. Where are they found? They form cortex layer just under the plasma membrane. So the microfilaments are concentrated just under the plasma membrane. What do they do there? They provide mechanical support of the cell membrane, cell flexibility, cell motility, and polarity of the plasma membrane. What is the polarity of plasma membrane? We are going to revisit it again later. Intermediate filaments. These are composed of heterogeneous group of proteins. So many examples. For example, there is vimentin filaments. Their size is intermediate, that is between the microfilaments and microtubules. Their location, they are widely distributed. Many cell types have their own kinds of intermediate filaments. What are their functions? They provide mechanical stability to cells, and they form desmosomes, which are cell to cell adhesions. So it is important to remember, if you forget everything else, that intermediate filaments are involved in the desmosomes. Next is the microtubules. Microtubules are composed of tubulin monomers. Their size is large and their properties are they are wide and stiff, as opposed to microfilaments, which were thin and flexible. Where are they located? Their one end is attached to a centrosome. What is a centrosome? Centrosome is a collection of centrioles and other proteins. So they are associated with centrosome. What are their functions? They are involved in cell division. They form the mitotic spindle. Intracellular movement of organelles. They are basically the railroads or rail tracks and components of cilia and flagella, which are the non-membranous organelles that we'll be revisiting later. It is very important to revise the functions of organelles because these are frequently asked in the forms of MCQs and SCQs. Some of the organelles that you cannot miss revising are mitochondria, nucleus, Golgi apparatus, endoplasmic reticulum, peroxisomes, lysosomes, and some non-membranous organelles that we will be revisiting shortly. Let's start off with the mitochondria. As for physiology, you are going to see their functions in more detail as compared to their structure. Briefly, their structure consists of outer and inner membranes, intermembranous space, and inner matrix. They contain their own mitochondrial DNA. This is important functionally. This DNA is of maternal origin. Why? It is derived from the ovum. It is of maternal origin and it codes for mitochondrial proteins and transfer RNA. This is important to know that some of the proteins present inside the mitochondria, especially the enzymes involved in oxidative phosphorylation, some of their components are coded by this mitochondrial DNA. What are the functions of mitochondria? Mitochondrion is responsible for energy production through aerobic metabolism, oxidative phosphorylation, and ketogenesis. This is important. It has a role in regulation of apoptosis, and mitochondrial number can increase in settings of increased energy demands. For example, in skeletal muscle cells. In people who are exercising or building muscle mass, the amount of mitochondria it can increase. Next up is endoplasmic reticulum. Let's look at its important points. We have to remember it is basically a vesicular network which is continuous with the nuclear envelope, and it is classified into two types depending upon the presence of ribosomes on it. Rough endoplasmic reticulum if ribosomes are present on it, and smooth if they are not. What are the functions of rough endoplasmic reticulum? It is responsible for the synthesis of proteins, both which are to be secreted or not. Smooth endoplasmic reticulum, it functions in the detoxification of drugs and in the synthesis of lipids and carbohydrates. So it has more of a synthetic function and also a protective function. So smooth endoplasmic reticulum and rough endoplasmic reticulum, they have different functions, and you have to remember these at least. Important points related to Golgi apparatus. It is yet again a vesicular network with the appearance of flattened membranous discs which are located between the nucleus and the cell membrane. Some of the functions of the Golgi apparatus that you have to remember. It is involved in the post-translational modification of proteins. That is, once the proteins are formed, the Golgi apparatus can attach certain compounds to it. For example, addition of mannose 6-phosphate tags to lysosomal enzyme precursors. The enzymes which are meant for the lysosomes, the Golgi apparatus can add these tags to those enzymes. Once these tags are added, these enzymes will go to the lysosomes. Packaging of substances destined for secretion and or intracellular organelles, example lysosomes, which bud off from Golgi apparatus. So they package the substances which are either meant to be secreted out of the cell or to be kept inside. Maintenance of the plasma membrane. How does it do that? By the fusion of vesicles. The vesicles which bud off from Golgi apparatus, they can be added to the plasma membrane, consisting of a phospholipid bilayer to the cell surface. So these membranes, they consist of phospholipid bilayer, and these can be added to the plasma membrane. One of the very popular university questions is the one that asks for the comparison between lysosomes and peroxisomes. To keep things simple, comparisons should be done in the form of a table. We can compare lysosomes and peroxisomes based on these features: their origin, location within the cell, or some other properties related to location, structure, enzymes, and functions. As for the origin, lysosomes they bud off from the Golgi complex, whereas peroxisomes they bud off from smooth endoplasmic reticulum, or they can even self-replicate. As for the locations, cells may contain 300 or more lysosomes, whereas for the peroxisomes their number vary from cell to cell. In some cells they are more concentrated as compared to other cells, for example in liver cells or the hepatocytes. As for their structures, lysosomes are small oval spherical bodies with lipid bilayer and have granules inside. Also their membranes contain a special pump, which is the hydrogen pump, which pumps hydrogen ions into the lysosomes. As for the peroxisomes, they are smaller as compared to the lysosomes. They are spherical bodies too, with specific proteins in their membrane. Enzymes. Lysosomes contain hydrolytic enzymes mainly. Hydrolytic enzymes could be ribonucleases, deoxyribonucleases, phosphatases, glycosidases, collagenases, aryl sulfatases, and cathepsins, along with lysozymes and lysoferrin. Whereas peroxisomes contain oxidases and catalases enzymes. Lysosomes, their functions. They provide an intracellular digestive system, autophagy and phagocytosis. They are involved in these two things. As for the peroxisomes, they carry out oxidation reactions that break down fatty acids and amino acids, and they are involved in the detoxification of various compounds, for example alcohol. And once the hydrogen peroxide is formed as a result of detoxification of certain compounds or drugs, this hydrogen peroxide is contained within the peroxisomes, and here it is neutralized by the enzyme catalase. So these are the comparative points which you can use to compose your answers. As far as nucleus is concerned, it is surrounded by a two-layer nuclear envelope which separates the cytoplasm from the nucleoplasm. Each layer of the envelope is a lipid bilayer. Nucleus contains almost all the DNA of the cell, which is complexed with proteins, and in this form the DNA is known as chromatin. It has several functions including messenger RNA synthesis, which is called transcription, and it is also involved in the regulation of cell division. Inside the nucleus is present another entity which is known as nucleolus. It is a prominent RNA containing dense body that synthesizes ribosomal RNA. Now we look at some other organelles which are not frequently asked in the theory examinations, but they can be asked in the viva. These are vaults, rafts and caveolae. What are vaults? These are basically large proteins which have carrier functions. They carry messenger RNA and ribosomal units from the nucleus to the sites where they are required in the cytoplasm. What are rafts? They are regions within the plasma membrane which are concentrated with cholesterol and glycosphingolipid, and they are involved in concentrating signal molecules and also in membrane trafficking processes. Caveolae are invaginations of the plasma membrane composed of proteins called caveolins, and they facilitate endocytosis. They have other functions too, but these are the things that you should remember about these organelles. Now that we have revised membrane bound organelles, let's look at the non-membranous organelles. Yet another table that will help us summarize. Microvilli, centrioles, cilia, flagella and ribosomes are the non-membranous organelles that we have to revise. Beginning with the microvilli, let's look at their characteristics. These are projections of plasma membrane which increase the surface area, and this adaptation is related to their function. They are present in small intestines and proximal tubule of nephron to facilitate absorption. As for the centrioles, they are composed of microtubules and they are present in the centrosome, and their function is that of their involvement in cell division by forming spindle fibers that separates the homologous chromosome. As for the cilia, they are long finger-like projections of plasma membrane, and they differ from microvilli in that they are supported by microtubules. They are further divided into two types, motile and non-motile, which is also known as the primary cilia or primary cilium if it is on one cell. Functions. Motile cilia function to move fluid and or secretions along the cell surfaces. For example, the mucociliary apparatus that is found in the airways. Primary cilia, these are present almost on every cell and they play a sensory role. Flagella. Flagella are similar in shape to cilia, but they are longer, supported by microtubules, function in the movement of cells through a medium. So they basically resemble cilia, the flagella, and as far as the humans are concerned, their function is in the locomotion, and that too of the sperm only. So they are only found in the sperm cells. Let's look at the ribosomes. Their characteristics, they consist of ribosomal RNA and protein. Fixed ribosomes are bound to the ER, that is the endoplasmic reticulum, whereas free ribosomes are scattered throughout the cytoplasm. What is their function? They function in protein synthesis, that is translation. So these are the details that you should remember about non-membranous organelles. Let's revise cell junctions, which are classified into three types. They are impermeable junctions or tight junctions, which can be totally impermeable or leaky at times, depending upon their location. Next up, adhering junctions. Adhering junctions, as their name indicates, they join two cells, adhere them, or they join the cells to the extracellular matrix. Desmosomes, zonular adherens, hemidesmosomes, and focal adhesions. Third one is the communicating junctions or the gap junctions. Cell adhesion molecules. What are cell adhesion molecules? These are the molecules which form these cell junctions or are associated with the cell junctions. These molecules include integrins, adhesion molecules of the IgG superfamily, that is the immunoglobulins, cadherins, which are calcium dependent molecules, and selectins, which have lectin like domains that bind carbohydrates. So these four adhesion molecules you should remember, and these three types of cell junctions you should remember. These diagrams can help you visualize the cell junctions and you can remember them easily. If you see over here in the first diagram, you can see the tight junctions, which are known as zonular occludins, zonular adherens, desmosomes, gap junctions, and hemidesmosomes. Hemidesmosomes, they anchor the cell to the extracellular matrix. In the second diagram, you can see the desmosomes. The desmosomes are also known as spot adhesions, and they are associated with cadherins. Cadherins are cell adhesion molecules, and they are also associated with the intermediate filaments. In the third diagram, you can see the gap junctions. Gap junctions are formed when connexins they interact. You can see 6 connexin subunits, they form one connexon, which is the hemichannels, and 2 connexons they together constitute a gap junction. They form a full channel, and through this gap certain ions can pass. Wherever these gap junctions are present, those cells they can act as a syncytium. So you can very well know that these gap junctions are usually found in the cardiac myocytes. You should at least be familiar with the concept of molecular motors. What these are, molecular motors are ATPases that convert chemical energy into mechanical energy. They are classified into 3 superfamilies: kinesin, dynein, and myosin. What are the functions of molecular motors? Why do we need them in the first place? There are certain processes occurring inside the cell which require motion. For example, we have seen that the secretory vesicles, they are moving inside the cell. If they bud off from the Golgi apparatus and they have to be excreted out, they are requiring movement, and they usually walk along microtubules. So these molecular motors, they help in the movement of those secretory vesicles. This is one example. these three diagrams, they show these molecular motors. You can see kinesin is involved in the anterograde axonal transport. That is, these molecular motors, they transport towards the positive end of the microtubules from the cell body to the peripheral process, whereas this other molecular motor, which is known as the dynein, it is involved in the retrograde axonal transport from the peripheral process of the neuron towards the cell body, from the axon to the cell body. This retrograde transport is slower as compared to the anterograde transport. These are some points that you should remember in case anyone asks or you get them in the MCQs. Next is the myosin. Myosin is present inside the microvilli and it has a role in cytokinesis. Cytokinesis is the movement of the cells. So these are the molecular motors that you should remember. They are involved in the movement of the secretory vesicles inside the cells, for example, and they are also involved in the cellular locomotion itself. So don't forget kinesin, dynein and myosin.